Wait, where did I put my lucky rabbit's foot? All right, hey y'all. My name is Prudence. You can call me Prue. I've been running a talk show with my partner Mason called the Lucky Rabbits Talk Show, and we are so excited to have our guest today. One of the first people we met in Canada. Just an all-around amazing social media presence. But I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is George Duss. I'm an intuitive advisor. So I actually do tarot readings for the most part, trying to start astrology and stuff for that. And my readings are almost kind of based on kind of life path kind of readings, no fortune telling or anything, but trying to help people kind of navigate their way through life and stuff like that. So any challenges that they have and stuff like that. So most of my readings I've done have actually revealed some dark secrets from people that they didn't know they could reveal themselves. But yeah, I get those kind of readings, and so some people are pretty kind of amazed at some of the readings. But I've been doing this like professionally, I guess you would call it, since the summer. But I've been doing tarot readings for like these development meetup groups and stuff like that for a couple of years and stuff like that, and one of and some classes, and so one of them said, you're pretty good at this, and so she forced me to go to the one psychic fair in the summer, and now I'm doing like fairs I think every week for the next 3-4 months.
Nice.
So but and it's
Those
pretty good.
fairs, those fairs are really cool. You guys travel around a lot, though. Do you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, mostly, it's mostly Ontario. I think because most of the organizers in Ontario, I think there's like about four of them.
Yeah.
So they travel across Ontario. So there's a couple two big names. Thompson is one. Anytime you see Psychic and Crystal Fair, that's Thompson events. They have a big following. Galaxy is another big vendor. I haven't approached them, but because I got enough vendors. There's another holistic healing fair run by Vanessa. So she does like these 1 day fairs and stuff like that. And the other one I'm going to be doing is Luna events. So they have more of a witchy kind of thing. So
Right.
which I've been told that I seem to attract the witchy ones. So because my table is all like really dark and stuff like that.
I
But
was gonna say, yeah, when I met you, you kind of had the like wizard kind of vibe about
yeah,
you, that like warlock aesthetic. So that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
I think I bought the cape or the coat at the time there too, so it was kind of warm. But
Yeah, you had the cloak and then you had your mala bead strand.
yeah, those are good. I forgot to put them on, but I noticed when I was doing one of my Terrascope videos, the mala beads were kind of making the camera go crazy. So that's why I don't wear them on camera. So,
This one tends to do the same thing, kind of catch the light. Right there you go.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, sometimes that's nice. I kind of like it. It'll give like a little hint of a little sparkle. But
yeah.
which this is so random. Which stones are on your mala bead one?
I think it's mostly tiger eye and stuff like that. So
That's a good one.
yeah, a lot
Nice.
of protection and grounding. So shiny.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
but,
I always kind of associate it with courage.
yeah.
Do you do stonework at all, or
No, I'm not. I wouldn't even know what a crystal is. I have an app for that. So, but
that's smart though.
yeah,
Yeah, you integrate technology a lot.
yeah. I'm like full time. I'm actually an IT guy. So I'm more of
Oh,
a technologist. So it's kind of interesting. I've been kind of incorporating some technology with the tarots and stuff like that. So kind of
that's
I have a pretty elaborate setup, with cameras and stuff like that. So that well, I mean, there's a couple of YouTubers that do tarot readings, and they got some sophisticated. I think I got some ideas from them. So
fair
uh,
enough. it's really like taking inspiration from other people in the community is like something we can all kind of it's the best way to do it, really. I mean,
Well,
that's
well, exactly. I don't, for with other tarot readers and stuff like that, I don't view them as competition or whatever. It's good to bounce each other, ideas off each other and stuff like that. So, you know, um, no, it's
like,
always good to meet other readers, and we all have our own like ways of readings and stuff like that. So, some
yeah.
people do one method. I do a different method. So.
And you can do the same method and still be pulling different energy or different results. And yeah, I always say it's kind of an independent career field. So the more we can be in a community, the more it's almost like a psychic union, right? Like we're almost unionizing when we get together and figure stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is with a couple of fairs. We all get together, we all know each other and stuff like that. So it's great that we bounce each other, and we always give each other kind of readings between each other too. So it's always fascinating. So then I love doing these fairs because you get to meet some like pretty great people, and we had a conversation, like a really good conversation when you got the two of you kind
Yeah.
of stop by and stuff like that. So
Yeah. I mean, everyone I met there, it's what you're saying. They kind of all had similar modalities, but everyone had such a different way of doing it. And I've been so excited about meeting all of you guys. I mean, everyone I've had on so far who I met up there is just like, I don't know, you guys are friendly and you guys are like really knowledgeable. And then also just interesting people overall as far as the conversations I've had. But like, this is a question though. You mentioned classes. Did you mean you took classes or you give classes?
no, apparently somebody was telling me in about a year or two I'm going to be a teacher and doing probably classes, but I don't know if it's psychic stuff or not. But yeah, so my kind of history on tarot and psychic stuff, when I was, I don't know, about 16 or so, my late sister used to have a group of friends. Her best friend was a famous astrologer in Toronto, and so she hung around, and then they formed like a psychic center for all these psychics to come in. So I got to hang around with my sister and all her psychic friends and stuff like that. So I was really fascinated. Then I got into the whole gothic thing. All that dark stuff, probably where my magician kind of witchy wizard kind of thing comes from. But you wouldn't know if you met me on the street. But so I was always really fascinated about it. I moved out west in 2004. I met a woman. She was like into like all this like psychic stuff, and so I started getting back into it. That didn't work out. So when I came back to Ontario in 2015, one of the first things I said, I'm going to learn about tarot and stuff like that. So I did take one kind of workshop or something like that. It was like a 4-week workshop at some occult store or stuff like that. And so we're like doing tarot and trying to learn everything. And she says, "Oh, by the way, your final class is actually the bookstore is going to offer free reading. So that's
Nice.
you're going to be your graduation." So I was like, "All right." So, and the coolest story was there was a woman. So I think there was like about 4 or 5 of us or something like that. And
Right.
so like she did a reading with every. So I think it was the Empress or whatever, the maternity card came up and said we're all pregnant, and there was some other kind of nasty cards coming in going, you're in a bad relationship, and we all read the same thing to her. She was just freaking out. So
Oh, crazy.
it
Yeah.
was crazy. So it was like, this is your sign. So
Yeah.
but
The Empress does that, though. The Empress specifically. I mean, when you look at card combinations in a reading, the Empress really just over and over again, the implications are right there with pregnancy.
yeah, it's interesting. it's interesting. So we'll get into my Terrascope thing, but the for next week's Terrascope, I actually for the tarot cards, I used the before tarot, and for one of the signs came up was the Empress, but instead of what the with the symbol that she has in her hand, it's actually two kids. It's because the before tarot is like moments before the actual the Rider Waite tarot card picture
Right.
is. So it's kind of interesting with the Empress. Seems to have been coming up a lot, the last couple of weeks for people. So
That's super interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting how they do you have this experience where if you do the same pull or you pull for different things or maybe the same person or event, the same card comes up over and over, even though it's like there's 78 cards. How does it keep popping up?
yeah, well, when I do these Terrascopes, there are a couple of times where I'll pull the same card for the sign after it, and it's like I did shuffle them. So
Yes,
I
absolutely.
did shuffle them. I shuffled them pretty good, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. It actually happened for next week's Terrascopes, which I think it was a Wisdom Oracle card and stuff like that. It was like Aries and Taurus actually had the same thing. So it was like,
And so when
no,
you do that, do you reshuffle so everyone gets a different card, or do you
yeah,
just
yeah.
lay it out like it did?
No, I reshuffle. So
Yep. Because it's like one of those things where you want to keep each one individual, or oh, not reshuffle, but do you change the card? Do signs in your tarot scopes end up with the same card as each other, like when you
uh,
present it?
no, I shuffle for each sign, right? So for both the tarot and the oracle cards. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I get sidetracked. Sorry.
No, don't.
Uh, but and then so one of the things that I think we talked about this at the fair is I was so engrossed trying to learn every meaning of every card and stuff like that. It was like really overwhelming. And then I skipped a couple of years, the last couple of years. So I took a class, Ashley Miller. She's a really good teacher. So I ended up not really relying on the actual meanings, but so when I channel my readings, it's more on the imagery that prompts me for the reading. So, and I don't even look at guidebooks anymore. It's like whatever the picture is telling me, I'll kind of relay it to the sitter and stuff like that. So
They say that's the best way to do it, is to
it's
get
the
away.
best way.
I'm like
Yeah.
really having a hard time with that one. I have my book that I go to every single time, and I was doing readings with Mason last night, and I was like, "Oh, I know that I should be going by my gut, but I'm gonna pull the book out." And I don't know. With me, I always read reverses as like something going wrong, or like but there are a lot of circumstances. This is my tangent for a minute, but there's a lot of circumstances where a card has negative connotations, and when it's reversed, it's a good thing. Like the reversed devil is actually good. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
I always try to give people advice to unblock that area, but I realized maybe I'm doing a disservice because sometimes it's a good thing that it's reversed, but it's that gut feeling versus the book, right? Where you kind of, I don't know. I'm still learning my sensibilities on that one.
I'll let you on a little secret. I try to make sure that I don't have reverse cards. I know, we should be shuffling and blah blah blah, but I don't do reversals very well because it's like, okay, what's the meaning for it? So
It changes
um
78 to 156 all of a
that's
sudden.
true. I
It's
think
like
I think I think somebody gave a stat and saying with all the card combinations and stuff like that, there's like a million combinations.
that's so funny. Yeah, the guest that I posted today, today's Wednesday, or no, yesterday, but it's February 27th, and it was an author, Marcus Katz, and he pulled out that statistic, and it was something like, I almost think it was like a trillion. He
Oh,
was,
really? Huh?
but that was specifically with Celtic crosses.
Oh, okay.
10 cards out of the 78 and with reverses. But yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of different things you can have, especially if you mix in oracle cards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's unlimited. So, but
Do you have like a favorite deck of oracle cards, or
um, on the oracle cards, no. Like if I could reverse the camera, which I can't, but I have like I don't know, like about 40 cards, decks or whatever. But
easy to collect them?
I do collect them because it like watching sometimes these YouTube things. I'm going, oh, that's a cool deck, and I try to search for it.
Yeah.
The one I kind of enjoy is it's called the life coaching tarot, or sorry, the life coaching oracle.
Yeah.
Here, let me see if I can get the.
It's always interesting to see the decks people are drawn towards, because I mean, when it comes to oracle cards, there's so many.
So it's this one, the intuitive life coaching oracle. So
That's cool. It looks like it's got some good art, right? Like
yeah, it does. So I'm always about the art. So
yeah.
because that's what prompts me for doing readings.
So when you do tarot scopes, do you just pull one out kind of randomly, like you're drawn to one, or do you have a system of picking them?
No, I like whatever, like I shuffle them, cut them up, and then whatever the first card that pops up, that's for that sign. So
Yeah. And then so you just pull it off the shelf and just go with the vibe that you have that week.
yeah.
It's good that you have so many of them, because that's a lot of weeks in the year.
That is, yeah, sometimes I kind of reuse them. I try not to, like, I don't have as many tarot cards and stuff like that, so I tend to use the Light Seers deck. I seem to very drawn to it. Yeah, when I first saw that deck, I saw I think that was a Three of Swords or whatever, and the woman in the picture is just in agony, and it's like it sparked this emotion in me, and I was like, wow, if that can do something to me, can you imagine doing some readings for people? So
it was really relevant. Yeah. I mean, I did a reading last night where I laid down a bunch of cards, and then the Three of Swords was in the future position, and I kind of interpreted it real quick. It was really a rough one, but then I immediately was just like, all right, if this is the future position, then I need to do another reading on how to avoid that future position, because it was a Celtic cross, so theoretically there was enough context to kind of see how to avoid it, but I was like, let's get more information on this one, because the Three of Swords is one. A lot of people talk about like the Tower as being a hard card to draw, but the Three of Swords, you're like, okay, something's either coming or got to give or be addressed.
Or blockage or whatever. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and that's an interesting one. I've noticed this. It's one of the only cards that usually doesn't have a person in it. And so there's a moment of like, I guess the heart would be the person, right? But it's interesting when a deck has a person, because it's a much clearer emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the cards on that deck actually do have a person. So, and like the expression on the face or the body language, says it all. You don't even know. You don't even have to know the meaning of the rest of the card. But no. So I kind of tend to lean on that more. But like I said, I like the intuitive life coaching, because that's sort of where my kind of readings kind of lead into.
Yeah.
I was awakened, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago and stuff like that. So now that's sort of where my focus has been lately, is kind of don't tell my IT bosses, but kind of going towards kind of helping, being a light worker, kind of
it's always interesting to be like new at it too. If you're like kind of more green, that you have I don't know, a lot of people are kind of set in their ways, but if you're really newer at something, you get to kind of put your foot in the different water and like test things out. Do you read for yourself? That's always the big question is
Oh yeah, I suck at reading myself. So
it's so much harder.
oh yeah. Well, because you're kind of biased about it, right? So,
Yep.
but
I,
I've never really tried. Like we kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but about playing cards and like reading the book. Like I find I find sometimes my ego gets the better of me sometimes when I'm doing readings because
yep.
like I had one reading. Sorry, I had one reading where I was doing Lenormand cards. Lenormand cards are like an easier deck to read for beginners
Mhm.
because like a dog, the dog card actually represents companionship, so friendship and stuff
Yes.
like that. So it's easier for somebody who's just starting out.
Mhm.
Lenormand cards are usually probably the best deck to start off with because it's kind of blatant what the card represents. Anyway, so I think so. I pulled for this older gentleman. I pulled the fox, some other card, and blah blah blah. And I'm going. The first thing that popped in my head, honest to God, was like this guy has some because the fox kind of represents kind of like sexuality and stuff like that. And I'm going,
Interesting.
this guy must be having a thing. But my ego, like, because it was in a meetup group, so there was other people in the room, in the Zoom room, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I want to give this guy this kind of reading. But you know what? At the end of the day, I said, screw it, and I gave him the reading, and it was like dead on. He says, oh yeah, I just met this woman, and it was like we're sex is fantastic. And I think
Passion.
there was another card to do with oh yeah, you're gonna be spoiling her. He goes, yeah, I spoil her a lot. So
That's so interesting. Yeah, sometimes, and we've talked about this with like mediums in these interviews too, is like sometimes you have to say the really, really random things because it's gonna
yeah,
feel crazy in your head, but then that's what clicks for them, and it's the validation moment.
yeah. So that's what I do is like whatever is pops in my head, that's what I blurt out, and usually those
Props
are
to
always
you.
the accurate.
That's that thing that's really difficult where you're breaking from the book and you're doing intuition. I mean, intuitive work is it takes a lot of trust in yourself, but it's also it takes a lot of trust in the client to tell you because sometimes you're reading for people and they'll go zip lip and not give you any feedback, and you have to kind of, is it clicking?
Yeah, I was one of those people because it was like I was kind of a skeptic at some certain points, and I
Yep.
know I went to my mom. My mom was going to see a gypsy, and she does taromancy, or no cartomancy, which is just regular playing cards.
Absolutely.
And it's like she's doing the reading, and I'm going, oh my, in my head, I'm going, oh my God, she's so accurate, right? But I was like pretty straight faced because I'm going, okay, well, this is how you test people,
Right, because there's like hot and cold reading, right? Like the
yeah,
people who are faking try to use your micro expressions or your
yeah.
emotions.
I don't, I ask direct questions and leading questions because I don't want to go off on a tangent if it's not relating to what's going on. But for the most part, they're going, oh yeah, that's what's going on. So
It's like it's challenging even as a client because I've had readings where I'm trying to keep a straight face and not give them anything, and then sometimes they'll give me something really accurate, and I'll realize I didn't acknowledge it in the moment, and they would have been able to go further. So I had a reading with one medium, and she was like, "I'm getting a feeling of like a burned, like the roof of my mouth is being burned," and I kind of was like, "Okay, interesting. Continue."
mhm,
And or I was like, I don't know if that really relates. I can't remember. But when I got back and I thought about it, I was like, oh God, I had a friend who passed, and I was like, oh God, that was the last time that we hung out. Was the burned roof of the they burned the roof of their mouth, and I almost feel bad. I almost feel like I did a disservice to not just the medium but the person she was contacting, because who knows what the next moment would have been if she had followed that kind of vibe.
yeah,
But
interesting.
being a skeptical client is like both good and bad. I think if you're
Yeah,
who's
I,
intuitive, it's easier to test
I,
people.
there, I've had sitters where, they were kind of tight-lipped, and you could tell that there's this negative thing happening, but then there are people that are kind of open, and those are usually the best readings, and it's not like,
Yep.
I'm studying them. It's like most of the time I'm looking at the cards and looking at them and saying, okay, just laying out what I'm getting and stuff like that. And
Have you
yeah, it's kind of interesting. So with people and readings and stuff like that. So
have you ever had a client who you can tell you're getting kind of like the feel of it, but they don't like the information? Just this is kind of what I'm asking. I had a client once, and I was giving her like a bunch of information about like she was like a CEO, and I was giving her this information that was coming up, and I was like, are you kind of like mistreating people, missing the forest for the trees? And she was like, this is interesting, but you don't need to psychoanalyze me. And I was like, oh man, you're getting a constructive reading and it's clearly accurate, but that's why you don't want to do it.
yeah, well, there's some blockage there too. So and this is where for somebody, if somebody was like that with me, I would go into, because I'm fascinated with psychology too. So,
A
with
good
all the
mix.
self-help group. So I'm trying to help the person. So if we want to explore something a little bit deeper and kind of go in a little bit more psychology stuff, I'll kind of ask the person, to dive deeper, because for the most part, to be honest, it is a therapy session. That's why they come see us, right?
Counseling, yeah, that's
For
what.
counseling, right? So
Yeah, that's the person that I do my residency with, or did my residency with before things kind of got crazy there. Um, she told me to put myself down as like my career when I was doing reading as spiritual counseling, because it's when you put down tarot card reader or astrologer on like as your job, it's like putting down spiritual counselor is much easier. I think my passport says I'm a spiritual counselor, which was kind of a funny moment.
yeah, it's kind of interesting that psychic and all those things kind of have a negative connotation. So, and
Yep.
I've noticed more, uh, people are now saying they're calling a intuitive advisor. I kind of like did the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Although I think nowadays, because we're all being awakened, right? More and more people are getting awakened. So it's now become a lot more acceptable now these days. So
Yeah.
there's not that negative connotation anymore. But
And there is, we've touched on this a few times in interviews, but it's also kind of once it's your job, once it's your source of income, it's like, because we live in inherently capitalistic times. Once it's like a job, people tend to take it a little more seriously. If it's just something you do as a hobby, people will kind of roll their eyes. But once you make it a career, people are like, okay, it's your career, and it gets a little bit more. It's easier for people to see as legitimate once it's something you're doing for people. It's kind of an annoying part, but once money is involved, people tend to
yeah,
take it more seriously.
yeah. Yeah, I just started, and so I've been getting, like I said, I'm getting some readings, and I'm starting to get more and more as I do fairs. But
Right?
it's a kind of an interesting, because I was all gung ho at the beginning and go, oh, I'm gonna get all these people, and but I
It's
don't
the
get.
slow season.
Pardon
That's
me?
I learned recently, because I'm barely a year in. Well, I guess I'm a little over a year in, but I learned recently from someone who does this a lot. February is apparently the year where nobody wants a reading, and it's like Christmas time is kind of slow. And because I've had a really slow time, but also it's let me like kind of explore this talk show kind of vibe, podcasting. But I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to be like restaurants where there's slow seasons, busy seasons.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of starting to get worried,
Yep.
uh, like from November, like the Cambridge one that we
Mm.
met at, it was sort of okay. And the other fairs were kind of less and less, and we're kind of like, what's going on? Like, because before everybody was busy. But we had one a couple of weeks ago in Mississauga. That was jam packed.
Nice. Good.
It was crazy. It was crazy, and I think we're most of us are going to be in Guelph this weekend.
Right.
I'm not too sure about that one. Then Barry. So, and one of the vendors were going, okay, we're not doing any fairs, January and February. And some of the other vendors, I don't start with them until like late March and stuff like that, April.
Like they
So,
know that it's the slow season, so they cut
yeah,
off for a bit. Yeah.
yeah, give a break.
That's
So, but like I said, I'm not the full year into it, so I'm just still learning the ropes of how these fairs, and the politics and how the policies and everything go. But it should be interesting. But I think, like I said, we were quite amazed with Mississauga and going, oh yeah, this is how it usually is, and I'm going, really, holy crap. So,
good though that let's see, if you get busy, then it's a good thing. I mean,
yeah.
I know part of the reason we went up to Canada was because we actually heard that it was that readers were really getting popular, and it was like a YouTube news story about it. But once we got up there, it was much smaller than what we were expecting. But also, we picked a really obscure time to go to Canada as far as tourists go, because most people are either, if they go in the winter, they're going skiing and stuff like that. I mean, I'm glad we got to see it. It was really beautiful, but I think we picked like a very off season for tourism.
Yeah.
But
There's not much to go around. Unless you're into skiing and skating and stuff like that. So, but
we tried ice skating. It was not a pretty thing for us.
because you were in Ottawa or something like that, did you go around the Rio Canal and ice
Yeah,
skating?
we tried to. We didn't get very far.
Oh, you did?
We rented skates that were one size too big,
Oh,
and the line to get into the skates or to exchange them was like a 45-minute wait, and so our time would have been basically up with the rentals. But we tried to tie them really tight, and we tried to make it work, and I immediately fell and hurt my knee, and I was
oh,
like,
geez.
if we keep trying, we might be able to get this, but if I break my leg in another country, it's not going to be good. We got a
No,
lot.
no. Hey, we'll take you, because we kind of have free healthcare.
That is true. If you're going to break your leg in a country, that's a good one to break it. Well, I don't know if it's ever a good time, but it was just hurt a little bit. I think because I was dressed for the cold, I had like 3 layers of thermal, and the thermal saved me because I was like nice and layered in. But it was a
Always
good
good to be padded. So
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Right. I was wearing like compression socks and thermal, so it was like it was a lot of padding, and it was holding everything together. So, but I also know to fall on my butt.
yes, yeah.
But it was on that.
Part.
Yeah, that canal is so cute. And every time we drove by, I said, "Oh God, look at all of these Canadians. None of them are falling. Nobody's even wobbling."
Yeah. Oh, I can't skate it for the life of me, but
God bless. Well,
yeah.
we have that in common then. Cool.
Yeah.
But we can roller skate, I guess. We thought it would be a lot like roller skating because we like to roller skate, and oh my God, it's so different.
Yeah, no. It is. I thought, I used to be a skateboarder when I was a young kid, but, and figuring, okay, because it's all about balance anyways. But
That's funny. Was skateboarding kind of part of your goth phase?
no, that was like before the goth phase. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like those kind of go hand in hand, the alternate kind of scene.
Yeah, that's how it
Alternate.
is kind of now with the younger generations now. But yeah, no, we were, 9 Inch Nails kind of thing. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
heavy
Susie
metal.
Univ- like Sisters of Mercy and The Mission were my favorite bands back then. So, but
Are they Canadian bands? This is just
no, they were both UK. So
UK. Yeah, because UK had the big movement with alternative music for sure.
yeah, they had always the best bands. So
Yeah. What happened to that? That's- Nothing against UK music. I just don't know very much of it. I guess I do, like Lily Allenson and stuff, but um that's awesome. Back to tarot cards though.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah. We were like totally sidetracked. Okay.
tangent. Um Back to tarot cards. Do you have this deck? This is the only oracle deck that I have. If you kind of collect them. This is called the Embroidered Graveyard.
No, I haven't seen that one.
I suggest this one to anyone who collects cards. It is so cool. The person who made it is kind of like a witch, and so the point of the cards, they're all things she embroidered, and it's what you were talking about kind of with dogs, where like this one celebrate uniqueness, and it's everything's really explicit. And so like but what she does is she thinks that keeping them together and using them is like one way to do it, but she encourages taking cards out and putting them around and putting them in a certain order. And she calls it like programming. So that's why I really like it, because I'm also into like technology. And so she says program the deck by layering up certain cards on the top. And like I keep Joan of Arc on my desk lately, and so she just encourages I don't know, I like it. It's very active. It's not just passively shuffling and reading.
Yeah.
But if you like collecting cards, that's my biggest one. I only have one oracle deck, but that's because I know from collecting like trading cards that once you start collecting cards, it adds up until you don't have enough room to store them.
Yeah, yeah, I need to build something for all my cards or whatever. Although one of the vendors actually said she actually uses the school phone holders. It's it's like it's kind of like an angle thing. So in some schools, you know, you're not allowed to use your cell phone.
That's
So
funny. That's what I was
so
wondering.
so they made these like cell phone holders where you know they're just slots and you just put the cell phones in it. So sure enough,
Nice.
you know, so it's like they almost like some of them are kind of removable slots, but yeah, they fit the tarot cards and oracle cards perfectly. And I go, oh, an ingenious thing because you know I see a whole bunch of people, you know, they have their decks and stuff with that, like kind of all stacked on top of each other. But she's got it really nice, and so you can actually see what kind of cards she has. So
That's a good one. I'm gonna keep that in mind for people. I
yeah,
don't know if that's something I got when I went to school. It was like just right when cell phones were coming out, like
yeah,
flip phones, and so they didn't have anything like that. But we also, there were no apps really for us, so it was
yeah.
just texting. We had to like text with the numbers back then, and so they didn't collect our phones or anything. But that's interesting because I bet you could find a nice used one of those on like Craigslist or Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I went on Amazon. I think they were like $25 or $30 or whatever. So on Amazon.
Nice. But it's probably like it's easier that way because it's easy for them to start to get lost in each other. Like the girl that I go to read at her house, her business, she has just a basket, like a 3-layered basket filled with cards people have donated, and it's you kind of have to dig through because they layer each other up, and certain ones have the titles on the bottom or on the top.
Hmm.
But yeah, storing cards and stuff like that. I know with crystals, it's really rough. I have a lot of crystals, and I keep thinking about how I can kind of display them in the background here, and all I can think of is a bookshelf.
Yeah, bookshelf. Yeah, like I said, I have a whole bunch of crystals that I've accumulated at fairs and stuff that I've attended. Yeah, they're just all in a basket. So, but
So, what social media platforms are you gravitating towards? I know you're on YouTube and you do Instagram. Because you were
yeah,
talking at the fair, like TikTok doesn't seem to be as good, which I've run into.
so it's actually most of the followers are and most of the positive stuff has been on TikTok. I
Oh,
was like,
interesting.
like totally floored. I think the first Terrascope shorts. I guess we should talk about the Terrascope because people don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Uh,
great.
the shorts are so on TikTok. You know, I think I got like 2,000 views or something like that in like 2 days. It was like, holy crap, you know,
Nice.
compared to the other social media platforms. So, yeah, no, you know, I going, can we keep TikTok? Because I'm getting more better responses from TikTok than anywhere else. So, but,
Well, are they banning TikTok in Canada? Is that happening up there, or?
well,
Um,
and it so happened that I think it was like the week before the ban. I think that's when I started posting on TikTok, and but I look at my analytics, and yeah, most of the TikTok people that are watching my videos are actually from the States. So none from Canada for some reason. I don't know why. So,
Yeah, it's so obscure. I noticed a lot of my people are from people who watch this podcast or listen. Props to you, love you guys. Are in Europe. It's a
mm,
lot of Germany and the UK. And that was before I had a British guest, so who knows why.
yeah,
But YouTube seems to push it around a lot.
yeah. Yeah, I guess we're at the mercy of their algorithm and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah, so because I usually use YouTube Shorts, and YouTube Shorts tend to I've noticed it's like they push it around to almost every country that unless the country doesn't speak English, because I don't get anyone in like Indonesia or South Korea, I think, are like the zero ones, but everyone else has a couple of them.
mm,
Spotify, though, I had Japan. So if you're listening and you're from Japan, we love you. I don't know
yeah.
how you know so many languages, but God bless you.
Mm.
But TikTok, we hadn't had a lot of luck on TikTok. So that you're putting the tarot scopes on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
Instagram and Facebook, yes. So,
Nice. Oh, Facebook too. Yeah,
yeah.
I never really had a lot of luck on Facebook, but I think Facebook has a lot less people who are open-minded to trans people. I run into more issues with that on Facebook, and so I just pushed Facebook to the side and said it's
Yeah,
not.
Instagram would probably be a lot better audience for you. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Instagram I should put more shorts on. I was doing astrology readings on it, but I don't know. Instagram, the algorithm doesn't really push me very much, which I'm fine with, but
yeah, the last so this week, last week and this week, I started doing carousels. So, and what the hell is a carousel? So I read up on it. So basically, you go on Canva, and so what
right.
I have is I have like really 10 photos, but in Canva, it's like this big long image, and so you kind of you
You
put your
can
images.
scroll it through. That's how you make
So,
those.
yeah.
Oh,
So it looks like one continuous like photo, but it really is like it's 10 photos, like
in a
kind of mush
set
in a set.
as you go.
And from what I was reading, Instagram actually really favors those kind of things.
That's good to know. Okay,
And a lot of people have, a lot of people have actually seen it. They go, "Oh, this is cool." It's like, yeah, because that's what I do. So like the carousel, I actually that's the first thing I post for my Terrascopes, just as a teaser because it's like a one sentence thing for what the reading's about, and then just kind of scroll through it, and they're going, "Yeah, this is amazing." So, but
so Canva, is that where you make your graphics?
yes, yeah,
That
it's
is, you're the
it.
third person who said that, and I still haven't opened it for some reason.
No, I was kind of hesitant. I'm going, I couldn't figure it out, but it's made my life easier. Now I don't, other than the tarot cards and stuff like that, in some of the readings, for the most part, I just kind of use a template for it. So,
Right.
because doing the Terrascopes, it's like a 3-4 day job to do the social
It's
media stuff, the video stuff, and putting the full details or the full readings on my website. It's a lot. So
Yeah,
pulling the
Mason,
cards.
we were talking about that earlier when we were talking about everything you do. You're pretty good about, you keep things high quality. You have like good sound quality as far as like you do like a little gong sound effect that I really love.
Yeah.
right? Like a little like sound bath sound. But then you're on all these things and you record a whole one and then you clip it up, and every single week, that's a lot. I mean,
And I
even
have a full-time job too. So, but
which is half the battle of being a reader, right? Is like you got to make sure you have something in like the mortal realm, but also
yeah.
you have enough time to kind of put towards it, which is, I think it shows the passion people have for it, because it's,
Well, well, just I guess we should talk about what the tarot scopes, because your audience is probably going, what the hell are they talking about? So every week I pull a tarot and an oracle card, and for each of the signs, and so I do these readings for the week and stuff like that. Actually, now in the last couple of weeks, actually putting some astrology, like the moon and whatever Mercury and Venus are, and Mars, because those are kind of fast moving planets. So
right.
I kind of incorporate it into the reading that's kind of related to it. Um, so yeah, I do that every week. And yeah, it's my, I've always been fascinated about horoscopes, like since I was young. So,
Yeah.
because I think it was Ann Landers was like the person who I resonated the most was always Ann Landers. No, was it not Ann Landers? She's the Eugene. I can't remember. I should have looked it up before or talk or interview. But
Was she
it
like a
was
local,
no. She's
a
I
more
think she's British or
mainstream?
whatever. I'll text you, or I'll send you who the person is, but I can't at the top of my head. But so I've been always fascinated about it, and then I started getting into tarot readings and stuff like that. I thought, then I started my my practice and stuff like that. I'm going, oh, when I married the two, because I've seen a lot of people kind of doing like newsletters and stuff, like pick a card kind of thing, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, hey, when I incorporate two passions that I have, and that's how the Terrascopes came about, and I enjoy it, and I've gotten quite a few feedbacks, even when I hand out my little summary sheet at the fairs, and
Yes.
people walk away, kind of chuckle, and go, "Oh, is that resonating?" Or what's going on next week. So,
Well, I mean, I know for me, I didn't really look at it when I took it, and I took like a business card from everyone, and we had a little hotel room, and I laid them all out, and I was kind of looking through everyone. Actually, I kind of read cards for each of you, and I was like, all right, I got like a little bit of a vibe. But before I email people, like I like used my tarot card little investigation. And certain people I like ended up spending a little more time talking to. I think it was how I decided who I was going to get a reading from, but at the same time, because we could only pick one person each, because the trip itself was expensive. And so,
yeah,
but I will say yours really sticks out, right? Even if you're taking everyone's business card, you have a square business card, which immediately is a little more unique. But then that sheet, when I looked at it, I mean, the Terrascope on that sheet that week really immediately resonated with both Mason and I. So it's really cool how just like even a printout will kind of jump out at you.
yeah.
Because I know when we went over and talked to you, that was one of the first things I pointed out. I was like, oh my God, this is, I was kind of nerding out. I was like, this is really cool and accurate.
Yeah, it's surprising that it's really accurate sometimes for me. It's like, okay, that's when it comes to self readings, that would be it. So,
Oh, because
uh,
you kind of inherently are doing your own sign.
yeah, and I try to not to be biased when I come to my Taurus and my Gemini rising signs, but I'm going, oh crap. So, but
Something you got to look out for, right?
oh yeah, it was like, yeah.
That's awesome. So you focus on both your rising and your sun.
Yeah, so what I always suggest people, because even at the fairs, because we talk about horoscopes, and I said, "Do you know your rising sign?" And they go, "No, what is that?" And I'm going, "Oh, it's rising sign is like the sign that was rising in the east when you were born, but know your time. And then some people do, and so I take up my app because Tamara, my
I was
friend,
gonna say you have to send them over to Tamara real
I
quick.
have to go send her to Tamara, but she's always doing a reading, so it's like, all right, I'll just pull up my app
Yep.
and get a quick what their signs are. And so when I explained this to them, and I said, and they're looking at my sheet, and I'm going, okay, so now that you know your rising sign, look at the rising sign, and they're going, oh my God, this is like more, because a lot of people were going, I talk to them, they go, well, horoscopes don't really. I'm going, well, you're reading for your sun sign, it should be your rising sign, because that's
And you
how.
can kind of combine them, right?
Yeah, and you should be reading for all three, your sun, moon, and because they may correlate together.
Exactly, yeah.
Um,
Which is that thing we were saying where there's more context and you can have an unlimited amount of information coming to you. That's funny. Gemini's your rising.
yeah,
That's same here.
that's why I'm good at my IT job. So
Yeah, it's the technological kind of that's interesting. Yeah.
very good problem solver. So
It's the mix too. I mean, I was doing astrology kind of for my sister and her fiance last night, and I was like, well, yeah, I went into this whole like spiel because once I bring up whole charts, I'm like, well, yeah, you like know the basics, but let's talk about the degrees and the houses and the cusps, and I do weighted scores, so I make sure to look at how much energy is in a cardinal, how much is in fixed, how much is in mutable, and then how much is in each element. And she was like, I didn't know you went so in depth. And I was like, so funny. Even like even your closest family sometimes doesn't really know what you end up doing when you're doing readings, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's easy to get overlooked by the people who know you the best. But yeah, with astrology, there's so much to look at. I know the moon, that would be an interesting one to keep into it too. I'm like the moon I always look at as your relationship with your mother, but also I guess it's more than that. It's your emotional, like who you are kind of deep down.
Yeah, and
Because
unconscious too. What's coming up in your unconscious. So
yeah, I'll have to do that with tarot scopes, kind of look more at each one. Because I just look straight for Sagittarius, but I look at Sagittarius and Mason's a Gemini, so I guess I am looking at Gemini already. But
yeah.
it's really interesting. Mason too will be like that's hitting right on the head with those. So if anyone tarot scopes, you gotta check them out. You might not resonate with it all the time, but definitely check it out.
Yeah, I mean, like somebody's gonna benefit from the thing. So I mean, even if it's one person, I'm happy. So it's
And
and
there is
that's why I'm just putting out. I'm not really into doing all this psychic things just for money. I get paid very
exactly.
well at my IT job, but I just I love helping people, and it's kind of my Taurus trait. So that Venus ruling. So, but no, I like helping people, and it's been like that with my IT job. It's like when I able to solve problems for corporate companies and stuff like that to make their life easier or to save them money or stuff like that.
It's
It's always a
interesting
great thing.
about like the Taurus kind of Venus energy, because that's what I notice about your readings is like the love of aesthetic. Like you're really bringing a beautiful imagery through, whether it's with Canva or it's the flyers or the printout, or like I said, your business card I really love your business card.
Oh, thank you.
That is kind of that Taurus Venus love of the look, love in general, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I
That's
did a whole thing on branding like long time ago, like 10 years ago. So like a lot of people say, you're on point. I'm going, it's the whole branding thing. So
yeah, like you did a
yeah.
workshop or you did like
No, I just kind of read about it and stuff like that. And
oh, you mean you
uh,
did like intensive for yourself, like you focused.
intensive, yeah. Because I had my own consulting company. And so, I mean, I even went to personal branding and stuff like that. So I always tell people. I know this is not psychic or tarot related, but
Well, no,
I always suggest people get their domain name, the .com with their name, because even my email address, my personal email address, is my full name .com, right? So
it pays off.
It does, and for the whatever $15 or whatever that you have to pay a yearly, to keep making sure that it's renewed, you own it. So, well, you at least own it, but
exactly. I will
but
say,
nobody can take away your identity because you own it. So,
and you're always competing with somebody. This is a whole thing where some people will buy out domains and then make people purchase them back from them, even if they're using them or not. Or you never know who you're competing with. I'll say, this is just one for prudentreadings.com. I sometimes feel bad because there was someone who had that name originally for their business, and their business was reading, sorry, not to make a judgmental face, was reading Bible verses. And I kind of beat them out to it. I don't know why they didn't claim the URL, but as soon as I found that out, I made sure to claim that URL real quick. So if you are the other Prudent Readings out there, I am both sorry and you lost.
yeah. Well, I would make sure, like, if you can afford it, like, do the .net and do all the other ones, because, like I said, I don't know, I think about like 20 domains for the various businesses that I have, and I make sure that I get the more popular, domain like .com, .ca, whatever, so that nobody can go in there and kind of say, "Hey, I'm George Duss,"
I forget .ca is so much of Canada. When we were up in Canada, everything was .ca, and it was like a new thing. And I remember we passed by a billboard that had a .com on it, and I went, .com? And Mason and I laughed about it for so long.
Yeah.
.com.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to the radio, I think, the other day, just with what's going on with the politically between Canada and U.S. Oh no, it was an interview on the news, and so the people running .ca, the domain registry and stuff like that, they were all like touting, "Oh, we have this thing that a business because there's a whole big push about buying Canadian up here lately." And so they were kind of promoting, "Oh yeah, by buying .ca domain, we help Canadian businesses and stuff like that." And I think I read or heard something else too, that there's a big push about getting discount prices or something like that. For anybody that has a business that has .ca on it, so supporting Canada, right? But
I was gonna say,
but they kind of said, well, yes, multi corporations do have the .ca, so.
So are you giving corporations discounts too? Yeah.
Well, they said, well, we can't differentiate, but
But so for anyone who's listening to this later on, if this goes on and on, you know what I mean? If we have a lot of episodes and people are listening later on, I think that it's interesting. So first of all, it's 2025 right now. It's February 2025. So we're really early on with everything going on. Who knows what's going to happen down the line? I talked about this in another interview. These are kind of like a time capsule, because what an interesting time to be alive. But if it's later on down the line, it's 2025, and George is doing me a big favor, because as an American show, I am blessed to have a Canadian helping out. You know what I mean? I was thinking that. I was like, oh God, I feel bad. It's almost like you're crossing a picket line, but I promise I'm not on that side of the country. I'm right there with you guys. Yeah. If I had to pick a side, it wouldn't be the one I'm on right now, but if you're listening later on, and this is probably like a time capsule while listening or watching, because hopefully these keep going on through the years, but I always like going back and listening to podcasts from 2020, because there are a lot of podcasts from 2020 when people were in quarantine and they had to do different things, and it's interesting. You kind of have to timestamp where you are, because it's a very interesting time. I say interesting time, but if you look, But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's just kind of interesting. Yeah, like it's like little time capsules. It's a kind of interesting metaphor there because it's great, because we're archiving stuff, and
yeah.
maybe people like 50 years down the road may be laughing at us, going, "Oh, these guys were so primitive."
Oh, well, yeah, literally that one too, right?
No,
Or like, yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Well, I'll say because I met you guys in 2024, and so my interview with Max barely touched on any of this. I think for when we talked at the fair, Max and I were making some jokes because we got to Canada like a couple days before Trump was doing the 51st state thing. And as it's gone on, I had an Australian guest right after the inauguration, and she was like, "This seems pretty crazy." And then I had a British guest, and he was like, by then it was late into January, and he was like, "I don't think I'm going to the United States anytime soon." And now you and I are here doing this one right after kind of the line's been drawn. So it
yeah,
is crazy.
I've been telling people, yeah, we're all going through a frequency change, and you
True.
know, through we're going through an evolution. Unfortunately, I think the worst of it, I think we've gone over the peak, but I think we still have a couple more years of this chaotic thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because I've read a lot, and I've heard about like this whole frequency change that we're happening, and we're going into a higher vibration, and then we have to put up with all the chaos because after chaos, things kind of burn down, and so
Yeah.
new things grow and stuff like that. That's the kind of metaphor about it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've read the fork churning, kind of goes into the whole archetypal generational cycles that we go through and stuff like that. And there's Ray Diablo about empires for the last 500 years. It's like
Right.
doing the
That's
same thing. It's like insanity. Like, okay, we'll try something. We'll do the same thing over and over again.
yeah.
So,
Well, spiritually, there's something to be said about that. With the people have been predicting like a frequency change for a long time. Pluto's in a new house or a new sign, so that's a huge deal. And so astrologically, you can see it. And then I like what you're pointing out too, because when I interviewed Bridget, the Australian, she kind of pointed this out too. It was you kind of have to get through the tower. And like it seems like the Tower Tarot card is a good metaphor for everything going on. Like the foundations were shaky to begin with, and at some point the tower's gotta fall so you can rebuild. And hopefully it's all for the better, right? I mean, a really like down to earth kind of simple one for people who aren't really into tarot cards is cleaning a room. If a messy room, you have to make an even bigger mess before you can get it clean. I always run into that with cleaning a room or organizing something. You end up making a bigger mess before you can get to the clean.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to stay optimistic. I'm on your page where hopefully we're over the peak and the mess was kind of in order to be more productive at the end.
I would think I think we have maybe another year or two, and then things are going to get a lot better. We just have to get through this thing. So
Yep.
unfortunately, and I'm not stressing too much about it, but because I do feel good things coming on the other side, right? So
Yep.
out of
Yeah.
this whole thing, but and that's part of the things of what I'm doing. What I'm doing as a light worker and stuff like that is trying to help people kind of navigate these kind of turbulent times, and
hmm
kind of bring them to the light,
Yeah.
and a path that they can navigate easily, or a lot easier, make things a little bit more easier for them. So
I was listening to NPR and they had someone on who was talking about the major themes of the next few years are probably going to be spiritualism as far as like seeking answers or getting kind of more healthy or having like a deeper psychological understanding. And I can kind of see that coming through because right now it's quiet, but I hear a lot of people saying that oh God, I need a tarot card reading, or oh, that would be really nice right now. And so I think we probably will be moving towards a place where people kind of are seeking answers, and hopefully we can help people. I know I've also talked to other people who are saying like for me personally and for a couple other people, it's almost like it feels like it's such important work that it's hard to charge for right now. I don't know if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah,
Yeah, it's something you want to almost do for free, at least. And at least with yours, it's really accessible to do tarot scopes. You can know that you're helping people, bringing information. And there is that vibe, right, of even if not too many people see it, or people see it now or don't see it this week, then hopefully who needs to see it is the person that's drawn towards it.
yeah. I mean, I've the serendipity things have always happened in my life. There have been times where like really crappy things are happening. And I go, why is this happening? And then realizing down the road that like a successful outcome came up, and I go, oh, okay, I had to go through that crap first. I'm sorry, I don't want to swear, but
Don't worry.
I don't want to hear. I had to go through that crap to get to where I am now, which is a lot happier time or whatever. So,
Yeah.
um,
And as a reader too, I talked about this with Lindsay and Elaine, is sometimes, I guess Max too, sometimes you go through hard things and it ends up helping your clients at the end, right? Like it informs how you can help other people when you go through really hard times. So I think to be a good reader, sometimes you have to go through a struggle or two.
yeah, I find like some of the readers that I've actually talked to, it's funny that we all had traumatic experiences, and I
Similar
was
ones too.
and I read I read somewhere, I think it was on YouTube or somewhere, somebody was explaining this and going, that's what kind of makes us more empathetic and stuff like
Mhm.
that, is because we've gone through that too. But you
Yeah.
know as people, some people say, we're spiritual beings living through a physical reality or something like that. So you know
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I kind of subscribe to past lives, but I also like to keep an air of like not taking everything as serious, like with a grain of salt, taking things with a grain of salt. But a lot of people say that if you want to reach spiritual enlightenment, you have to go through kind of similar events that might have traumatized you in a past life. And so if you want to get to a place where you can help other people, you have to have helped yourself. And every time, I don't know about this, but every like incarnation of life, you're going to try to heal whatever was going wrong in the past life. And so in that mentality, usually the beginnings of lives are harder, and what we struggle with is like a small taste of what we struggled with in the past life. So yeah, spiritual beings living a physical life for sure is
yeah, it is, yeah.
is like maybe that has to do with the struggle, maybe it's just the cultures we live in. I don't know. I have a hard time speaking solidly on things like that, but
Yeah.
yeah. But sorry, we got super off topic, but it was nice to
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. No, I always get sidetracked, but squirrel. So
Well, yeah, and that's part
mm,
of like the vibe of being a spiritual person, right? You go down whatever you're drawn to. I will say something that I think is really cool is you were saying earlier, like we were getting away from spiritualism, but I think a decent amount of people who listen to these probably are readers themselves, and I think it's nice to get a different perspective from a different reader, because you have kind of that more technological business side of it. And if that's the angle you come at it, then it's nice to hear about. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I will.
and it's kind of interesting the way I did my website, because you know I wanted to get into more into tarot, because I'm always fascinated about learning things new that I don't know. And it was kind of funny, after I did my website initially, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be I seem to be attracting people who want to learn about
Mhm.
tarot, because on my website it's like, oh, what's tarot, what's astrology, what's numerology, what's Lenormand cards, and I go into kind of in depth. I guess that maybe that kind of the call to being a teacher down the road, I don't know, but
Oh yeah, that
uh
might be what you
so
want Teach me.
And the way I with my tarot scopes is, instead of picking the same, deck all the time, like
Yeah.
I kind of entice people, like even more readers going, because I'm always, like I said earlier, I'm always fascinated when I read, when I see somebody else's tarot, I'm going, oh, that's a cool deck, I'm going to get that, right? And so, and I'm sort of bringing that into the tarot scopes, where I'm hoping that some readers are there. Some people may not know there's, a before tarot yet, or
Yeah.
which will be interesting, because for next week it's before tarot. For the following week, I'm just going to do the regular Rider Waite, and then the week after that, I'm going to do the after one. So just, I don't know if the same cards are going to be, drawn and stuff like that, but it'll be
Well,
kind
you
of
never
interesting
know.
to see how that all plays out in the next 3 weeks. So
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting next few weeks. I've been doing tarot card readings for each month. And March looks like it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, it's interesting. I think February was a lot about kings showed up a lot, like leadership and authority, right? And then in March, it seemed like was all about aces. And so it almost feels like if last month was about all of these authority figures having to make choices or making big choices, then I feel like March is going to be about the consequences. Like it's every action has a reaction. And at this point, we might know who made the choices, but at this point, the everything's out of our hands, because it seems like that's kind of the karmic theme, right? Is you make a choice and then the rest is all kind of out of your hands, the results of it. But
it's
I'll have
kind of
to,
interesting that you're bringing up a whole bunch of aces, because those are new beginnings and stuff like that. So, and it's
yeah,
kind of interesting when you said, you're getting a lot of kings, and I'm like going back to, yeah, it's been a lot of kings coming up. So
yeah, in the tarot scopes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I see a lot of social media readers. One of the people I interviewed who is also on social media, Fernie, pulls a card every single day. Eerie. I don't know if we all kind of are in the same energy, so we all pull similar cards, but every once in a while I'll do a reading for myself or questions around, and then they'll pull the same card up, and I'll have to comment. I have to be like, this is insane. Do you know that you're doing this again? Are
Yeah,
you spying on me? But all right. I feel like we've kind of boiled everything down. I always ask at the end, do you have any advice for people?
um do what I'm kind of doing, is I'm learning about surrender, and not, because I used to be a control freak, and so
Yeah.
now I just like let it go, and whatever the universe presents to you, just let it be, because you know in a way, I guess a path has sort of been kind of guiding you to where you need to be, and just kind of let things happen. And that's probably the best advice, because it'll be less stressful for you if you kind of surrender a bit. So
Yeah.
instead of trying to control every aspect of your life, that it may be out of your control and stuff like that. So um, I've been learning, and it's kind of freaky, because things kind of play out the way it should be, and it's like, okay,
Yeah, one thing leads to the next if you start to follow the flow, and you have
yeah,
to be open to that in order to get to the next thing, right? Like
yeah,
if you say no to everything, then you won't be able to move forward and discover new things. And if you keep yourself closed up, then opportunities don't come along.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be next week's tarot scope theme, is like flow.
Yeah,
And so it's kind of interesting,
that's
especially with
cool.
the ages now. Now you got me thinking now. So I'll have to kind of be more cognizant of, kind of, who
Yeah,
did it? Okay. She's
it
on to
was
something.
really wild. This because I do a Celtic cross. This March, it had every single ace come up immediately in the cross area.
Hmm.
It, yeah, I won't go too much into it, but it has been wild. The year itself in January, almost all major arcana. February or January itself was all minor arcana in the finer details, and the kings seemed to be controlling different aspects. And then March, and I'm still a little worried about March because these are specifically for America, but the king, no, it was the King of Swords came up and it's conflict. And I was like, oh God, what are we looking at in March? But also, there's stuff going on with everything in Ukraine and Gaza, and so I suppose it's predictable what's going to be coming up. But yeah, then it was all aces for March. So I'm trying to keep track of things and kind of reflect back each month, but it's getting away from me. If you put too much on your plate, it all starts to get away from you. You know what I mean?
Nah, no, I
But,
hear you. I hear you.
but yeah, common themes are really interesting. It's a good piece of advice, though. It's really, honestly, I like to kind of take these pieces of advice too, and I've been kind of a control freak lately, so it's a
Yeah,
good thing to hear.
less control. No overanalyzing. So
Yeah,
but,
so much is out of control, honestly, and I say this all the time, but we can only do what we can do with what we have, so stay
yeah.
positive.
The universe has their plan. So um, that's how I kind of see it, and eventually, like I said, a lot more people are going to just kind of be awakened and stuff like that, and um, because I think that a lot of people are in a kind of a lost state. So
Yes,
that's where this is where the light workers come in, and
it like it got away from me, but that's what I was gonna say about March, is it looks like things are on a silver lining kind of path, right? In March, the star comes up as like Bridget Esselmont, when she was on, she said this: the star is like being vulnerable and like completely yourself. It's after the tower moment, and it looks like we're going to be laid bare. It's out of our control. It's karmic. We're all just going to be changing, and maybe that's for the best. But yeah, for sure, things will be all right.
well, it's kind of interesting, with the so you're talking about the star that was Aries for next week.
Oh, that's
The king
interesting.
the King of Swords was for Pisces. But it was kind of interesting because in the before card for the star, she's holding the vessel, so doesn't have her feet in the water or pouring the water yet. So,
Interesting.
um, so those are the moments. So she's still trying to, kind of figure out what to do, right? So, and
Connect.
then the King of Swords. The sword is actually it's like the cloud with a hand giving the sword to the king, right? So, and there was a King of Cups too. I can't remember what sign it was, but there was a King of Cups, and it was like, holding the cup, a hand holding the cup to the king, right? Because
So
they're,
so
both cards, they have the cup and the sword sitting on there, and they're proudly, but you know, but before tarot, it was like, okay, well, it wasn't them that created the cup. It was from
this
an
is so cool.
unseen forces, right? That
I'll have to check
handed.
that deck out.
Yeah. It's a really cool deck. So
I kind of got
there's a couple of versions. You can get on the the Chinese thing. You can get the before tarot. I think it's like $5-10 or whatever. But you can get the whole kit with a guidebook. I think it's like $50 or $45 Canadian on Amazon. But you get the full guidebook, and it's kind of interesting how the guidebook. I just kind of looked at it, just just kind of looked
because
at.
if you know the cards, then you can kind
Yeah.
of put together what's happening in the imagery. Because that's a really cool. I wouldn't have thought about that when you were saying the king. I wasn't sure if he was going to be swinging or if it was laid before he holds it up. But yeah.
Well, it's not his sword. It's somebody else. It's somebody handing him the sword.
Yeah, every sword has to get made by someone else. That's interesting. Yeah, wow, that's actually a really interesting thing to think about. But we kind of touched on this already. But the last thing is always, where can people find you? How can they support you? How do they book a reading with you?
All right. So they can book a reading with me at dusttarot.com/book. Got the whole wizard thing. So you pay, send you a Zoom link and everything. So There are some packages with astrology, so it will ask you for some more detailed information, like your birthday and your place and stuff like that. I'm on Facebook at Dust Tarot. Same with Instagram at Dust Tarot, YouTube at Dust Tarot, and TikTok at Dust Tarot. So Dust
That's
Tarot.
the marketing thing. You got to keep
And
it.
it's kind of a it was a kind of play on words. The way I picked that name was, if you say it fast, it does tarot. So
Oh, that's super clever. For a long time, I wasn't. It took me a minute to get that your first name was George because it's Dust Tarot. But that's really funny. I hadn't thought of like the pun of it.
yeah. So I thought it was kind of cute. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with it.
That's a good one. Yeah, and it's straightforward, easy to find. Can't suggest enough. Honestly, if you're listening or you're watching, whether it's in the future or I was about to say or in the past, but that's not possible.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Yeah, I can't suggest it enough. Honestly, great content, beautiful content, really well shot, but also good food for thought. So this has been our episode with George. If you're watching, it's probably late March, so you know exactly what we were guessing about, which
Yeah.
is also an interesting thing to think about. Hopefully March really did have the silver linings we're looking for.
I hope so. Yeah, I think it will.
Yeah, for sure. You can always find a silver lining even if things are wild. So
That's right.
I'll end the recording, but thank you. This has been the
Thank
Lucky
you.
Rabbits Talk Show.